8:37 a.m. Caribbean Sea, 90 nautical miles off Venezuela's north coast. No warning on VHF, no courteous security hail. From the southwest, three white scars cut a hard silver horizon, three P-800 Onyx sea skimmers, each roughly $6,600 B, accelerating along the deck at Mach 2.6, 300 km/h. Their seeker heads are pointed at USS Thomas Hudner, DDG-116, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer valued around 2.2 B, patrolling a trade lane that moves 2.3 B in U.S.-bound goods every week. Within 24 seconds of launch, regional nodes see the pressure spike. Inside Combat Information Center CIC, the returns go hard, then harder. This isn't a drill. It's a geometry problem with a pulse. General quarters. 4 SM-6 interceptors leap off the rails at about 3,500 morning show Mach 4.5. They arc separate and drive. 2 Onyx disintegrate aluminum sleet whips the air. Splinters stitch the sea. 1 survives the gauntlet. The impact yields a blast on the order of 18 tons TNT, ripping a bite from the flight deck, licking paint off steel, and shaking systems down to their gimbals. Lights flicker. Comms stutter. 12 critical subsystems go temporarily quiet. Of 320 sailors aboard, 24 are wounded. 3 fatalities are later confirmed. The Caribbean glass calm a minute ago, tastes of smoke and wire insulation. A ship that practiced for this exact nightmare now does the harder thing. It returns to checklists. 8:38 a.m. Fire parties snap on air, spread foam in a tight practice fan. Damage Control Central draws a shivering map of pressure, heat, and access. A boatswain's mate tastes copper and keeps his voice even. The officer of the deck OOD checks sea room, 1 glance at the helmsman, 1 at the horizon. 2 nods, no words. 8:40 a.m. Inland somewhere near Puerto Cabo, a cramped operations room argues over semantics, shadowing or intrusion. 1 clipped order ends the grammar debate fire. History kinks by a degree the way it often does in rooms that smell like coffee and dust. 8:41 a.m. Up top, CIC merges the world surface plot, air plot, SLQ-32 spectrum, trace wind traffic, and a growing perimeter of curiosity on AIS. A young petty officer draws a grease pencil line across the clear board to mark CPA if a fast mover holds its current course. The number drops by tenths. No one raises a voice. The tactical action officer TAO repeats range and bearing, once the way a conductor taps a baton, then says the one phrase people remember from a calm ship: maintain ROE. Log everything. 9:00 a.m. USS Thomas Hudner's distress traffic hits the Navy's net. The question no longer reads who fired first. It reads, how do you respond without setting the whole sea on fire? Don't just watch, engage. If you value veteran-grade calm, military analysis hit. Like, subscribe and sound off. Did layered defense do enough, or was escalation already baked into the board? 10:00 a.m. West Wing Situation Room. Phones bagged doors, sealed voices trimmed to fax. The president steps in, listens hard, then lands the line they shot first. We respond smart. Out of that sentence comes Operation Freedom Thunder, a 2-cut plan written for deterrence, not drama. 1. Dieter leadership. 2. Restore freedom of navigation. 5:17 p.m. Signature. 5:20 p.m. Bells at Barksdale AFB. 2 B-52H roar and level for the long leg. KC-135 tankers draw their arcs. EA-18G Growler crews run checklists with the bored elegance of professionals. F-35A slide into the escort geometry quiet as an idea taking shape. Message discipline starts at the calendar. The United States is not racing to be loud. It's pacing to be legible. Allies read tempo. Insurance markets read it too. When you move in a way that feels like a diagram, the world exhale is audible. 7:45 a.m. next morning, Caracas. At 35,000, FT growlers smear the spectrum with artful rudeness. Local scopes bloom with phantoms. B-52H call signs Bunny 1 or 2 wait for a 7-minute window that the planners promise them on a whiteboard 3 rooms away from the situation room. When it opens, they send 5 GBU-31 JDIMs, $2,000 LB each within 3.4 seconds. CEP-10FT tight enough to crater the central chambers of a parliament complex that intelligence tied to covert logistics for narcotics and weapons masked as aid. Seismographs blink 3.1 magnitude. A tower of heat claws to 120 FT and leans in the wind. Power cuts march across 6 districts. Multiple injuries are reported. A dozen staff arrive at hospitals in shock. U.S. losses none. From jamming to impact under 7 minutes. It is not annihilation. It is amputation. A cut at coordination nodes. A slap at the illusion that a sanctuary can do double duty as a command post. There are louder ways to talk. There are not many clearer ones. 12:30 p.m. Puerto Cabo. 5 encrypted network nodes stutter. Command goes locally blind. 2 senior naval officers are casualties. 1 dies en route to care. 1:00 p.m. EST, the president faces cameras. We did not start a war, we stopped a threat. Behind him, DEA route maps and satellite shots of weapons caches tucked beneath shrink-wrapped relief goods. 25 nations suspend channels with Caracas. Marine insurance near Venezuelan waters triples. The Dow opens 600. Florida fuel ticks, plundered 11% overnight. Hours later, the Organization of American States meets. 14 Western Hemisphere partners announce joint patrols keyed to smuggling lanes and innocuous-looking feeder routes. The point isn't to humiliate a flag, it's to stabilize water. Merchants need predictability more than speeches. So do families on ferries that run at dusk. So do port captains who loathe rewriting notices to mariners on a Sunday. A kill chain is dramatic. A kill zone is architectural. USS Thomas Hudner recovers on plumbing sensors, networks people who breathe the same checklist. SPY 1D paints behavior, not dots. Acceleration curves, intercept angles, the little tells that separate bravado from intent. SM-6 is the long-arm, high-max, speed-agile endgame. Today it saved a ship from a 3-vector knife. Tomorrow it will save an argument in a room full of flags. SLQ-32 keeps its diary, every lick of search, every squeak of low-power targeting, every lie a signal tries to tell. Lawyers love evidence. So do allies. Damage control is choreography boundary doors. Isolate fans, pull and push a lungful of shipboard air. In the right direction, foam goes where physics says heat will creep. Medical response is practice grace. Stabilize triage move. No heroics, no delay. The missing piece of most conversations is discipline. You don't beat a sea skimmer by turning into a movie. You beat it by finding the next line on the checklist and reading it out loud. After the strike, quiet, wins matter more. Hails then optics. Use VHF, then show the camera. Everyone behaves better when the tape is running. Helicopter as posture, not provocation. MH-60R at a conservative orbit. MX-20 FLIR steady green warning laser. As a lawful non-damaging, we see you. Spectrum pressure. SLQ-32 logs emitters and keeps fire control tone off the table unless somebody crosses a line. Geometry over adrenaline. Maintain sea room. Favor angles that make collisions mathematically nonsensical. Stay diagram clean. There's a seamanship phrase older than most weapons' conspicuous compliance. You don't just follow rules, you make it easy for others to see you're following them. Light signals call regs turns as if an instructor were standing behind your shoulder. That's not theater. That's narrative insurance. The 8 minutes that decide everything in any close pass. 4:22:30 p.m. is the seam when pride wants the con. You beat it with cadence. 4:22 p.m. A patrol ship's bow wave hardens. Wake rifles straight. In CIC pens uncap themselves. The TAO says maintain posture, record, no lock. 3 verbs, 1 tone. 4:24 p.m. Seahawk slides left of the track, descends to the briefed altitude. The sensor operator reads deck details, covered Weapon 5 crew forward phone camera on the bridge wing. The call is warm but unmistakable, unsafe approach. Alter course. International waters. 4:26 p.m. Green laser flickers across bridge glass. 2 figures step back. A radio goes to an ear, comes off, goes back again. CPA drops a tenth. OOD trims 2 degrees and buys time without gifting position. 4:28 p.m. Spanish reply formal brittle. The destroyer answers in the same register U.S. warship conducting legal transit in international waters. Your movements are recorded. Maintain safe distance. The helo climbs 50 feet and holds, making the scene look like a manual instead of a dare. 4:30 p.m. Something gives. Speed slides 2 knots. Course ticks a degree. Somewhere on a foreign deck, a young sailor breathes properly for the first time in 5 minutes. On the destroyer, nobody smiles. They just keep counting. 4:32 p.m. 19 knots. More air between steel. Negative lock, negative tone, the TAO repeats. The other helm chooses dignity over drama. That's what adults in uniform do when they realize the camera is an honest witness. The wider arc, politics, proximity, perception. Consider who watches these waters. Regional governments ask, did the fight stay inside a box? Were humanitarian corridors preserved? The answer: documented routes, lawful distances. Time-stamped restraint means less diplomatic drag and fewer emergency phone calls that begin with, "Explain this clip." Alliance staffs want predictability. A synced timeline. 8:37 a.m. ambush. 10:00 a.m. brief. 5:17 p.m. signature reads like muscle memory. They can underwrite with training seats, munitions, releases, and shared early warning. Humanitarians and insurers look for patterns. No hits on protected sites, no wandering salvos, no mystery secondaries in dense districts. When a corridor calms by 4:10 p.m. and lanes never close, risk models blink from red to amber. Markets notice duration. Hours versus weeks decides whether rail schedules slip or shatter, whether cold chain survives a weekend, whether premiums spike or wobble and recover. Adversaries study cost. If you can't break the defender's rhythm or dirty the defender's narrative, your mass is feeding someone else's training loop. When the clip hits the world, it shouldn't thrill. It should convince. Editors in allied capitals see a helicopter that never dives a destroyer, that never lunges a patrol ship, that remembers manners. That's how you keep oceans from becoming talk shows. Today's kit won the hour: SM6, SPY-1D, SLQ-32, MH-60R, JDAM, EA-18G, F-35A, and the human machine that made them acquire. Tomorrow's patience comes from upgrades that turn minutes into decisions. AN SPY-6 Plus, Aegis Baseline, 10 earlier clearer cues on small, fast, low RCS targets. The gift is measured in seconds. A bridge can turn into calm words and correct angles. CWIP Block 3, ANSLQ-32, V7 non-kinetic shaping that separates observed from provoked and keeps pride from finding a pretext in the spectrum. MQ-8C Fire Scout unmanned endurance that documents the parts phone clips skip and lets manned helicopters be artists of restraint. BMS, Sensor Fusion, an adult common picture ground, sensors, EO, IR, radar cues, and manual spot reports welded into traffic light clarity for go, no-go decisions, with IHL, no-strike overlays, baked in. Upgrades don't make ships brave. They make ships patient. Patience is what keeps your best day from becoming tomorrow's apology tour. Tactical autopsy. What worked, what's work? Layered defense aboard USS Thomas Hudner caught most inbound threats inside a window measured in half minutes. That's real competence under pressure. The hole in the net is a reminder redundancy is not luxury. It's how probability is taught humility. The strategic raid, B-52H plus JDM plus Growler plus F-35A, was deterrence with receipts timely, legal, publicly briefable. It did not seek trophies. It sought coordination nodes and political calculus. The economy is an ocean instrument. Premiums, routes, energy ticks. They respond to conduct more than speeches. You stabilize seas when you make procedure more predictable than pride. Human cadence. The parts without headlines. A Seahawk crew chief checks a panel light that has never failed. He checks it anyway. An engineer arms a bridge charge only after the last civilian car clears. An FPV operator, if this were another theater, waves off because a roofline shifts the risk. A senior chief leans over a chart at 5:10 p.m. and draws 2 better angles, not criticism, craft. These are the millimeters of integrity that never trend, but always win. Law and memory. Why the record matters. In modern conflict, The first casualty isn't truth, it's context. That's why the side that owns the record wins the argument that matters, the one that happens later in ministries, boardrooms, and allied parliaments. Every hail is time-stamped. Every course change is logged. Every FLIR frame preserves distance and demeanor. Every radar lick is cataloged as search or fire control, and the absence of the latter is a diplomatic force field. You don't argue with adjectives, you present tape. When a coastal ministry goes to microphones, there are synchronized tracks and signatures from multiple sovereign watchers, U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard, and sensors ashore on the ABC Islands under the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Disputes shrink when facts refuse to. The power of control isn't loud. It's the unglamorous arithmetic that turns a volatile morning into an ordinary afternoon. It's checklists that keep their dignity when tempers don't. It's a bridge team that knows which knob not to touch, a CIC that prefers facts to flourishes, a pilot who holds altitude because the camera needs the same truth tomorrow. Control is choosing the angle that cannot be misread on replay. That's how you win in an era where a 10-second clip can outrun a 10-page brief. It also travels. Allies read control as a promise. If they share radar tracks, air corridors, and legal risk with us, we won't spend it recklessly. Insurers price it as reduced volatility. A day that ends on schedule keeps ships in lanes and premiums in range. Adversaries file it as a constraint. They can gamble on pride, but they can't bank on us losing our voice. Even neutrals, the small states and port authorities who live by timetables, treat control as the difference between a rumor and a rule. Inside the lifelines, control is culture. It's the OOD who says sea room before anyone says speed. It's the TAO who can recite ROE in their sleep and still finds the page in daylight. It's a junior sailor wiping salt from a lens because the footage must be clean when the embassy asks for it. It's a chief who quietly moves a knot of bystanders off the bridge wing because professionalism looks like space. None of that makes headlines. All of it makes history. Strategy lives there too. The United States did not stage a spectacle, it sequenced effects. The opening ambush met layered defense. The response met law. The strike met proportionality, not an erasure, a precise subtraction of coordination and nerve. Then came silence, the hardest effect to earn. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of predictable routines, returning a pilot boat, nudging a container ship into berth, a fuel truck rolling on time, a family planning dinner without checking the news twice. Control is kind to the future. It leaves room for ministers to de-escalate without losing face, for partners to double down without explaining your temper, for young sailors to learn the right lesson, that judgment outranks adrenaline. It's not weakness, it's stewardship. A superpower isn't defined by how much noise it can make, but by how little noise it needs to make to get the world back to work. And control is teachable. You rehearse the non-lethal ladder until it becomes reflex hail. Show, record, reposition. You train to keep fire control tone off the table unless the line is crossed. You brief the helicopter profile that reads witness not warning, and you fly it even when the horizon is angry. You practice the after action too, where the tape is cataloged, the bearings are checked twice, and the lesson is captured as calmly as the day demanded. That paperwork is armor for the next storm. We'll say it plain for those who wore a uniform, and those who did not. Strength opens the door. Discipline decides what happens once you're inside. The missiles proved we were targeted. The timeline proved we were ready. The restraint proved we were worthy of the authority we carry. That is the power Americans trust with their sons and daughters at sea. The power to act hard when necessary and to act wise when possible. So remember this cadence. The next time the water tightens and rumors sprint ahead of facts, control the geometry, control the record, control the pace. Do that and the ocean returns to what it's supposed to be, a highway, not a headline. And when the day ends with a logbook instead of a eulogy, you've done more than win a moment. You've defended a way of life that depends on ordinary mornings, dependable routes and uniforms that choose clarity over applause.